Okay, this is 8th grade lesson 2.5. This is part 2 of systems of linear equations. Our standard, once again, is we're going to go ahead and solve systems of the linear equations, but this time we're going to use graphs, so we're going to have pictures to look at. Our standards are still 8EE, 8A, B, and C. Our page numbers out of the hardcover book are 74 through 81, and out of the practice journal, pages 41 through 44. Today, instead of working through tables and using our tables to go through and solve systems of linear equation, we're going to work on graphing them and actually visually seeing what the picture would look like to find our solution. So as we work through these, we're going to go ahead and have to review really quickly how we would graph this equation, because really you guys have done this before. It's just that today you're going to actually have 2 of them, and you're going to have to understand how to then look at that graph to determine the solution to our systems of linear equation. So as a reminder, when we graph, if we graph from y-intercept, we always have to have our y by itself. This would be our slope. If there's no number, it means there's a 1. And then this is our y-intercept. So this is where we're always going to start. So when I start this first equation, I'm going to go to -1 and put my dot. And then I'm going to follow my slope. So my slope is just an x, which means 1x. And remember, when it's a whole number, it's always over 1. So I'm going to go up 1 over 1, up 1 to the right 1. And I'm going to do a couple of those just to make sure that my line is nice and straight. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and draw my line through that. Okay, so there's my first line. Now I'm going to go ahead and do my next one. So my second equation is y equals -1x plus 3. So we'll start at the plus 3, put our dot, and then we're going to follow the slope of -1 over 1. So that's down 1, still to the right 1, down 1 to the right 1, down 1 to the right 1. I can now see where it's intersecting because it happens to be one of the dots that I already kind of pre-drew. Okay, so now my next step to finish this out, so the first part that we did is not new. It's just that now there's 2 lines instead of 1. We are going to give the coordinates of this intersecting point. So if you're not comfortable with doing coordinates, just always remember it's x, y, just like the alphabet. And what I do for visual sake for those students that struggle is I just follow my lines. So if I follow this line down, on my x line, I was at 2. And then if I follow this line across on my y line, I was at a 1. So it would be 2, 1 for my solution to this system of linear equation. Much faster this method to do versus having to fill out the table and do lots of orders of operation to solve. Plus, we don't have to extend out if we didn't find our solution. We can visually see our solution. Okay, so let's try another one. Get rid of my lines here really quick. Okay, so let's try this one. Okay, so once again, most of these that you're noticing are ones that we worked yesterday, or sorry, the previous part of this lesson. So now if I go through and I graph, once again, we're going to start with our back end. My graph that I currently have only goes to 10. So you guys on your whiteboards have a graph that looks like this, and I'll enlarge it because it's really hard to read. Okay, so here's a bigger graph that I can use. Okay, so now when I go through and I graph this one out, I'm going to go to +14, put my dot, and then I'm going to follow the slope. It's -5, remember, over 1. So it's down 5 over 1. So down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1. I'm going to do that a couple of times just to make sure my line gets straight. So down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1. So there you can visually see my lines. And I'll go ahead and connect my dots so that if it extends beyond those ones that I have, I can still see where it intersects. Okay, so then my next equation is x minus 10. So we start at -10 and put our dot. -10 is down here. And then it's no number, so that means it's 1 over 1. So up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, There's my intersecting point. And whenever you're graphing, the one thing that you have to remember is you have to be very spot on when you're doing your straight edge. You cannot freehand your lines. You'll notice that I like to do the extra counting over just to make sure where it's intersecting. If I hadn't done this last blue dot that's sitting right here, it looks like it's slightly off, like not exactly on a corner. Well, that's just because this line right here is slightly off. So if I were to shift this over just a bit, which it's not going to work with me right now, you would see that it is now crossing through that. I was just slightly off when I did my first line. So now I'm going to do the coordinates of this point right here. Okay, so once again, if you're not comfortable with X, Y, that over then up or down, because it's the reversal of a slope, follow your grid. So if I go straight up from this point, that's my X number. So it was at 4. Remember, it's X, Y, Z, so X, Y. And then if I go straight across, that's a -6. So my solution for this was 4, -6. And we got that yesterday also when we went through, or when you previously did this lesson, remember when we filled out the table, the exact same coordinate or exact same equations, and we had to extend out beyond what we originally had. We had a 4, -6. So we still get the same solution. It's just another way of doing it. This is visual for you. To me, it takes less time to go through and do, but we'll find out when we do part 3 of this lesson that it's not always practical to graph equations either. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put one out here and have you perform this one. So you'll do this on your whiteboard. Get rid of these. Okay, so let's go ahead and, whoops, wrong one. Try this one. So if y equals our x on this one, remember we're going to do a 1x. Just to get you started here, when we have just an x, what does that mean back here if there's nothing back here? It means there's nothing, which means it's at +0. Okay, so that's where you're going to have to start. You have to understand that concept for that first equation. So go ahead, pause your video, and work your way through this equation, graphing your lines. Make sure you're using a straight edge so that you can see where they intersect. So go ahead and work through these 2 equations and get them graphed, and then find your x and y where your lines intersect. Okay, so we'll go ahead and when we went through to do this solution, here's our intersecting point. Okay, our x line, we were at -1, and our y line, we were also at -1. So our solution to this one was -1, -1. Okay, so that's basically it for this part of the lesson. Once again, what you were working with was not a whole lot of new. Remember, when you're graphing your lines, you always start with that back number. It does have to be in the format of y equals. So if you get a standard equation and you're wishing to graph it, you're going to have to transform it to get the y by itself before you can graph it. And then just remember, it's always x and then y, just like in the alphabet. Good luck with this one.